part 4 of the inventory system from scratch tutorial in UEFN. Today we're going to be working on adding persistence. That means that whenever we add items to the inventory or use them or move them around, this data will save, and then if we end the game and start the game again, the items should still be in our inventory in the same place. This is what we did last time, so we've got inventory, you can move items around, you can use them, and yeah. So to start off, we're going to need to open VS Code. So if you just go up there, I've already got mine open. But we're going to need to make a new class first off. So if we go to tutorial inventory, we're going to make a module which is going to hold the data about each player. So let's just make a new file. We'll call it tutorial underscore player underscore data .verse. Yeah, so this file is literally just going to have module that basically holds data about each player. So let's define that. We already did a module before, which was this item system. This is also a module, but basically it's something that doesn't need like a physical representation in the world. It's just like they're called kind of singletons in programming. Yeah, so we're gonna make the module, then we're gonna just add one variable which is going to hold the data about each player. So it's going to basically be a map of players to their data. I'm just going to put test there now because we need to define a class to hold the data. We've got a module which is going to contain a map of the player's data, and then we're also going to need to make a class that actually is the data. So we're going to call that tutorial underscore player underscore data. A class that needs to be final and persistent. But you might already have some player data set up in your project, so you might just want to add what we're going to add to that data, because you probably don't want multiple of these player data classes. You'll probably just want to have one class that just contains most things, because there is a limit on how many player week maps you can have in a project. So you might want to use this class for storing other data rather than just our inventory data. So this is going to have a player data class with one field which is going to be the inventory, which is going to be a map of player slot data. So if we go into tutorial underscore inventory, we're going to basically just store this. So basically going to copy, it's basically going to be the same setup as this field, where it's just a map of data for each slot. So that should be it. Don't know what it must be persistable. Okay, so we need to copy this persistable attribute, and we're going to need to put it on this struct here as well. So we need to basically say that this struct is persistable because any data that needs to have persistence needs to be marked with this field, or any data structures, sorry. Yeah, and then we can just copy this, put it in here. Basically a map of players, their data. I'm probably going to get a moan about includes we're missing, but I'm not saying it, so it should be the first org relation. That should fix it. There we go. Also, for this, we're going to need a constructor as well, which we call make player data class, and mark it as a constructor. And then it's going to take in player data class, and it's going to transact, and it's going to return a player data class. Basically, what this is just a function, but what it takes in is it takes in player data. It's going to return player data, but what it basically does is it's going to copy all the data from source, and then it's going to allow us to make changes to it. Because when you save a new value in the player data class, we can't modify a direct variable in the class. We need to basically make a new copy of it with our changes applied. And this constructor helps with that. It means that you don't need to redefine, you don't need to set the variables to each other manually. You can just kind of have a constructor that does all that for you. We just have inventory, which is this field equals the sources inventory, so we're basically copying it. And if you add any more fields, you're going to duplicate them as well. You would basically do this. So you just keep adding fields and making sure they're copied. Yeah, so this allows us to replace like a single value in this class easily. And then we're going to add a quick few functions, which is just going to be a function to load a player. Nothing. Check if player already has any data, and then we're just going to ignore it. Then we're gonna obviously don't have any data. We're going to create a new class for them. Then we're just going to set that class. So I'm going to put this in brackets because we're going to want to error if it fails to set. So we're going to try to, it's going to be us trying to assign the new data to the player and like store it. And if it fails, which is, I showed this before, you can put an or error basically. So this action is a decides, which means that it can fail. Then we can add an or error. So basically, if it fails, then it's going to cause an error, which is going to basically stop program. The error is just going to be failed to create player data new player. This really shouldn't be hit, but it's something that if it does error, we want it to kind of crash the program, just because it's such a critical error. If your player doesn't have their data being saved, you don't really want them to be able to continue playing because it's just not fair. Yeah, this one is just going to be something that allows us, this function is just going to basically return the player's inventory data. So we're going to return player data for inventory. And we're going to use this to basically like initialize the player's inventory to start. Then we're going to need another one. I'm just going to copy this. For this one, save inventory. Slot player, slot index. Then some slot data. I'm going to make this optional because we're going to make it so that if you pass false instead of some data, it'll basically just clear that inventory slot, which allows us to like delete item. We're going to make it so it returns nothing. Then what we're going to do is we're just going to use this function here. We're going to get the player's current inventory data. Then we're just going to basically adjust it. A new variable called inventory, like new inventory. This is basically the adjusted data. We're actually going to so we're going to do if slot data equals. We're going to see if any data has been passed. If it has been passed, then we're going to the slot data into that slot index. Actually, we're going to copy the map first. So we're going to set the new inventory map equal to what the current inventory is. Then we're going to add the new slot data in. If no slot data is provided, then all we're going to need to do is we're going to need to remove this slot index from the current inventory map. So that's why I defined it as an empty map first, because it's basically we're just going to copy all the data in, but the one we're removing, which I think we've done before, where this is basically removing key from a map, where you have to basically copy all the values over to a new map, except the one you want to remove. Basically for every slot index in the current inventory map except the one we want to remove, I'm going to add it to this map, so we can just copy this. There you go. So this should copy every value in the current inventory data except the one we're removing. Then finally we can just set the value in the weak map. I'm going to put a quick comment. This is basically where we're storing the player's data. you'll notice we're going to use the constructor here. So if we make a new object of the player data class, what we don't have to do is if we had this doesn't really make sense right now with only having one value, one field in the player data class. But if we had multiple fields, we would normally have to define them all here so that we didn't lose data. But what we can do because we have a constructor, instead just call the constructor and it'll basically copy any fields from the previous value, which is here. So this is the previous, or like the current player's data. And this will basically just make a copy. So right now, this wouldn't do anything. It's basically just copying the previous data. What we want to do is we want to copy the previous data, and we want to adjust this specific inventory field. We're going to do inventory equals, was it the new inventory map? So we're going to basically change the inventory variable and copy over all previous data, which should work. So this class should be sorted now. All we need to do is basically tell this class, this module, to save data about a specific player. So we probably want to start off by loading the player. So if we go to our player manager device, when the player is added, we basically just need to tell it to load the player. I'm probably going to do this here. I'm going to do whatever the module's called. There we go. I'm just load player. So this is where we're loading the player's data. Then there's also another thing we're going to need to call, is we're going to use this get inventory map function that we made. So we're going to call the tutorial player data.get inventory map for the player. And then we're going to tell the inventory class here to load this data basically, but we'll have to add that in a second. So what we need to do for that is we're going to actually need to go into the inventory and we're going to need to add the variable. We're going to call it optional owner. So basically this class needs know what the owner is. Otherwise it can't save data. So we're going to need to store a reference to our owner variable, to our owner wrapper, which is tutorial on the player. We're going to make it optional because when we in here, when we define the inventory, and we define it like not a variable, it's defined straight away, which means that we can't pass in the owner, so we can't put owner equals self here because you can't do that when you're initializing it within the class body. So instead, we're going to have to make it optional. Then we're going to have to manually call set. So we'll just put up here, we'll just call set. We'll just have an optional variable to pass in. But it's optional, which means you should be able to, you can use this to the same function to clear it. So if you just call set owner false, then it'll clear the owner. That should work. Then we're also just copy this. We're going to call it get owner instead. Return tutorial player. This one isn't going to be optional because instead we're going to make it besides transacts, which means that it'll just use it differently. You can just you can use square brackets to call this one instead, and it can fail basically is why it's sides. Yeah, so because we've done that, we're actually going to need to set the owner somewhere. So we're going to do that straight away. There we're going to call tutorial player dot get their inventory. Then we're going to call set owner, pass in tutorial player, wrap it in. There we go. But yeah, so now the inventory has context of who owns that class. It should allow us to save data by using player. Then what we're going to need to do actually is we're going to need to add a new thing called init, a new variable called init slots, which is just going to basically set this basically just going to set this variable up here. We're just going to take in a slots map, which is going to be same same type as this. Return nothing. We're just going to do set slots equal to slots. This just allows us to basically set the initial data. The way we can do that, go into here. We've got the inventory map, which is our loaded data. So this is loaded from that module, from that week map. So now we can just do tutorial player.inventory .init slots. Then we just pass in inventory map. This should load that straight away. And then the last thing to do, so we've got the loading data sorted. We've got the saving sorted in the module, but we're not actually telling it to save anywhere. We're going to need to do that whenever we update or clear slot data. If we go into clear slot data, we're going to do this one first. This one's a bit simpler. So we're just going to go into, oh, we haven't made clear slot data in there, sorry. So go here, and we're going to start off by trying to get the owner. So if we do get owner here, so we need to get the owner because we need to tell the module what player to save data for. Then we're going to try and save the data. So if we just call this save inventory slot is a decide, so it can fail. What we're going to do is just say if save inventory slot, pass in the owner's player object, pass in the cleared slot index, and then just pass in false. So as I said before, if we just pass it because it's an optional, if we just pass in false, it's going to clear that value. Yeah, so if it manages to save, we're just going to add a little print, and that's going to be saved inventory slot. Just put as empty because this is when it's being cleared. And we're also going to add a print if it fails, which we're going to call, make it say failed save inventory slot or there. So we'll just pass in the slot index in case that helps you debug it down the line. Actually, instead of a print, we're going to make it an error. It's just a bit clearer. And we can just copy this value here, and we're going to put it in, or copy this code, put it in the update slot data as well. But instead of passing false here, we're just going to pass slot data. Then we're going to, instead of as empty, we're going to say, we're going to pass the item ID and slot data.item ID. An error up here because it's owning. It's going to need to be an option. But yes, the item ID and just the amount, so you can just kind of see what's been saved and debug it a bit easier. Then down here, we'll just leave that as the same. Right, so that should be it. We should now save and load the player's data correctly. So what we're going to do is we're going to build code, and then we're going to push changes in the editor. Right now we've pushed changes and loaded into game. If we press I, insert some items into our inventory, give them a move around. That we're getting a lot of prints. It's saying it's saved data, it's clearing slots. That means that if we close this menu, and if we go into the editor end game, that's going to close the session, so your game's ended. And then if we start it again, it should keep that data. Reload it. So you see in the top left, oh, it doesn't say anything. But if we press I, we should have all our items in the same location, and when you move them, it should be saving them as well. You use them, it should save them. Then we can just fill it up. Yeah, it should keep saving. This should work when on the published island as well. Just make sure that if you go into your island settings, there are some values you can configure about data, or persistence, sorry. So you can change the persistence behavior for edit and playtest sessions. So you might want to adjust those to test certain data. Yeah, so that should be it for part 4. On the next part, we are going to look at making stack sizes. So you can kind of combine these items and you can split stacks and you can use up only one item in a stack. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and comment.